Well, training camp gets closer and closer, and the Browns conversation continues, including Las Vegas projecting out who the starting quarterback for the Browns is going to be week one. We'll get into that. We'll get into whether or not Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are on the hot seat, because that conversation sort of percolated this week, and also some other side conversations here about players that we got our eyes on, and Jeudy earning his latest recognition, which I think is a worthy one. We'll talk about all that and more. It's Spencer German. It's Anthony Moeglin with you here. Cleveland Browns on SI, our podcast that we got here for you as we continue to count you down to the dog days of summer. Megs, it's crazy. Like, I was on vacation the last, 8 to 10, not 10. It was 7 to 8 days. And I get back and you kind of realize oh crap, I got a week and a half, and then it's really training camp mode. So it hits you like a ton of bricks all of a sudden when you realize that we're so close to football. It's exciting, but it's also a little disappointing because you're like, man, I just want to soak up every second of the vacation I was on. So
yeah, well, the real question is, then I have a comment to what you just said. I know where you're at, but Lake House for the week, how was it? You guys have a good time?
Oh no, it was a blast, man. It was awesome. We've been going up to, for those who, not that anybody cares, but we went up to Lake George, which is in the Adirondacks. We got married there. Every year we've gone up there. I feel like we always get one day where the weather just sucks, and I'm not even kidding. The weather was it rained, it was drizzling the day we arrived, which we weren't really doing anything that day anyway. And then other than that, it was perfect weather every single day. It was beautiful. Literally the day after we were gone on Thursday, it was this storm came through, and it was looked like you were in the middle of the ocean. The waves were crazy on it was insane. So we avoided any of the bad weather. It was perfect weather pretty much the whole time. It was a great trip. And yeah, I did get a chance to relax here before the grind really continued.
And then you come back, and like you said, you come back and you look at the schedule, and you're like, okay, 2 weeks till you go. And I mentioned it on our last show a couple weeks ago. Yeah. I remember being a player when I did play, and you start getting into July, and basically the end of June was the end of summer. And you kind of just and it wasn't really summer. You were working out and doing all that stuff before, but once July 4th hit, you started thinking about and getting the anxiety of am I training enough? Am I doing enough? Yeah. The season is literally right around the corner. And now, I mean, shoot, dude, we have NFL football in 20 days, right? We have NFL football on the 30th.
I can't, you talk about the end of June being the end of the summer. I can't imagine. I know you sort of get a taste of this because you also do stuff over with the Ohio State Buckeyes on SI. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine covering college football because it's even quicker. You have spring ball. And I guess your summer you get a little bit more, your summer just starts earlier. You kind of get May and June instead of June and July, like you do in the NFL. But you literally come back and after 4th of July weekend, it's all right, now the grind starts because college football starts even sooner. So I can't even imagine.
It's crazy. It's 50 days till college football begins, which is just bonkers, man.
And NCAA football 26 came out. So
did you get it? Have you gotten it yet?
I did. I have not played it yet because that's life as an adult. You get video games that you can buy any video game you want, but you just never have time to play it. So
it's so sad, Spence. I don't even have a console anymore.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, it's horrible. But
I will always have one because I need. That's my detox. That's I just need something mindless to do, and so I play PlayStation.
Yeah, I don't have a PlayStation or an Xbox. Haven't had one in years, but I would 21 you quickly, very, very quickly, especially in NCAA 26.
You think you still got it? You still got it?
Hey, it's like riding a bike, dude. It's like riding a bike.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. We'll have to give that a try sometime. In the meantime, though, the Browns obviously enter a season they're in a weird transitional phase where they're trying to win, but also have a lot of young pieces that they're trying to develop on the fly here. And I think it's interesting. There was some odds that came out from, I'm trying to find it was sportsbetting.ag, which is obviously one of the off the beaten path books. It's not, your prominent ones, but they basically listed out the odds for the first coach to be fired in 2025. And Kevin Stefanski had the fourth best odds. Brian Dable was 4-1. He led the way. Mike McDaniel was second, 5-1. He was next. Shane Steichen, who I didn't even really think about as honestly, I think people are overestimating the Colts. I think people think the Colts might be okay this year. People are talking about the Browns being bad. I think the Colts have a chance to be worse than the Browns, but that's just me. So that will make some sense. And then Kevin Stefanski. I think another name that's interesting on this list is like Zach Taylor was 8-1. He was after Jonathan Gannon, who's 7-1, who's after Stefanski. So like there's some interesting names on here. I think a lot of them make sense, but Stefanski having the 4th odds, I think like outside looking in, that makes sense. Like you're coming off a 3-14 season. Anytime that's the case, yeah, like you probably shouldn't be guaranteed anything if your team stinks again. But at the same time, I also think if you have that thought process on it, I don't know if you have like a finger on the pulse of where the Browns are at right now. If you think that Kevin Stefanski is going to be the first coach fired, because I think Jimmy Haslam sort of signaled at the owners' meetings that they are not rushing to make any rash decisions. They're not just going to jump ship with Stefanski or Andrew Berry for that matter, and that he's going to give them some time. He's going to show some patience in trying to let them dig themselves out of the Deshaun Watson debacle that they find themselves in. And so I understand why he's on the list. And honestly, like anything's possible. Like if they win 3 or less games again, of course, like anybody could be on the chopping block then. But especially if the team like quits on him. But I'm not going into this year thinking that Kevin Stefanski is going to be fired, or be the first coach fired, or even be fired by the end of the season, frankly.
I am very much so on the train of Kevin Stefanski. I think Kevin Stefanski is a very good football coach, and I think it would be a mistake if the Browns do fire him. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because the second part of that is I say this now on July 11th. We'll be dropping the show, and fast forward to September, October, November, and this team is 5, 6, 7 games under 500, and you're like, wait a second, what are we doing here? And the fan base is already kind of restless as it is, and you don't really know what the status is going to be. You're potentially looking at another top 10, top 5 pick, and if that's the scenario, maybe he's not the first one to go, but it'd be really hard to convince a lot of people that if you have another stinker of a season, that you got to keep him around. And I don't know. I think this is a really odd position that the Browns find themselves in. And I try to think back to other franchises who've been in similar positions, and there's not many, right? There's not many who really went all in on a quarterback where it failed. And then you have some, your owner kind of speaks out in your favor, but also too, like, you got to win football games. And what is he going into year 6 now? And 2 playoff games to show for it, 1 playoff win where he wasn't even the coach in, a couple of seasons above 500. Like, it's kind of been very middle of the road. And this year's going to be a really, really tough one because the outlook is not great. And if they can steal, like I would say, and this is kind of the question I want to ask you, but like, what is a successful season for the Browns? We were talking pre-show, like their win total is like 5.5. Like if they get to 6 wins, is that a good season? Or are we looking at they need to get to 8, 9 wins? Do they have to try to make the playoffs? Like what? I don't know what you would determine successful, and that kind of scares me when you look at the coaching position and even the front office and general manager positions as well.
Yeah, real quick, we could talk about that here as well. I was going to say too, though, because of Jimmy Haslam's comments, because I think he's trying to show patience, and because I think he's turned over a new leaf where he doesn't. I don't think he wants to fire people mid-season anymore.
Yeah.
I think he waits till the end of the year generally now and sort of reassesses then. That's another reason why I don't think Kevin Stefanski is going to be the first coach fired, because if he's going to get fired, I think it's going to be after the season. Like I think he would wait it out, see how things go, see if, again, he's looking for the indicators that I mentioned. Does the team just flat out quit? Do guys stop playing hard? Those are the signs of like, okay, maybe he's lost his voice in the locker room, and then that's a problem that you maybe then do need to consider firing him. But I think he waits to the end of the season to do it. So that's why, to me, if he's on a list or you think he's going to be the first coach fired, I think you just don't understand where this team is at. I think they are trying to thread the needle on like staying competitive, trying to win while also developing young guys. And so I think they're going to get. I think the assumption going into the season at least is like these guys are here for the next 2 years at least to find that franchise quarterback, and maybe he's on the roster already. We'll see. And then we'll kind of go from there. But to answer your question, like what's a successful season that maybe like keeps everything status quo and people feel good about it? Like I think you would have to drag this team to like 10 wins, maybe sneak into the playoffs. Maybe even 9 wins would do the trick. Like if you finish 9-8 and you're above 500, I think people leave feeling pretty good about things where they're like, well, man, like this team really surprised us this year. Like, Kevin Stefanski saves his job and nobody's really concerned. Like they feel optimism about going into the next year, especially if they can find a franchise quarterback or identify that franchise quarterback. But I don't know that like if they get to like 6 wins, it's a win in the eyes of like what Vegas is telling you the Browns should be. But I don't know that I call it like a successful season. 6 wins is not a successful season, no matter how you slice it. So I wouldn't go that far. But I do think like they're being undersold largely by places like Vegas in terms of like what their win total is being projected to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does make sense. And I do think we align in that front where it's like, hey, when you're seeing these lines come out, I know it was 3.5 at one point, and then it's now I think 5.5 now. Like that is, in my opinion, and I think this is a unbiased opinion too. Like I think that's very low. Like I think that this Browns defense is very, very good. Still very good. Has pieces everywhere. The offense has some missing parts. Their schedule is tough, but you still can run out there. And Joe Flacco is going to keep you in games early in the season just by the ability to just rip the ball down the field and kind of do it without a care. And I think that Kevin Stefanski is, and I'll continue to bang this drum. Like I think he's a very good coach when he's doing his stuff. Like, and that's going to be the big thing, and the change that everyone's going to notice and see right away. It's going to be palpable. The Browns getting back to the old ways, and how they're going to try to control the clock and shorten games and make it really hard on their opponents to be very precise in what they're doing. So there's so many layers to it. I do think that the Browns aren't getting the credit. They're probably getting what they deserve, but I do think people are underestimating what this team could be going into this next season here.
I think they're getting what they deserve based off a 3-14 season. No one's going to give you the benefit of the doubt after that. But I think this team's better than people are giving it credit for. And if you just look at the makeup of the roster, I think that's 100% true. Like I think we talked about it at one point. Like PFF did like a roster ranking. I think it was PFF, where it's like they ranked all 32 rosters and the Browns were 32nd. And it's like that is utterly ridiculous that the Browns would be the 32nd ranked roster. I can think of like 3 teams off the top of my head that have worse rosters than the Browns. And so I find that sort of preposterous. But we'll stay in Vegas. We've been talking a lot about Vegas odds in this episode already, but they also weighed in on the Browns quarterback competition and who they believe is going to be the starter week 1. This comes from FanDuel, which shared that the Browns starting quarterback odds. I thought I had it here, and now I have to like actually find the actual like there was actually a list, and now I can't find it for some reason.
Oh,
what the hell happened?
Tragic.
Okay, here we go. Wait, is this right? No, this is not right. What the hell happened to the list that I had? Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you that Joe Flacco was number 1 on FanDuel's list in terms of the quarterback that's going to start week 1. Kenny Pickett was – I'll have the official numbers here in a second. Kenny Pickett was number – okay, here we go. I got it. Joe Flacco, number 1. His odds to be the week 1 starter were at minus 102. Kenny Pickett, plus 200. Dylan Gabriel is 3rd at plus 500, and Shedeur Sanders is 4th at plus 870. I think this list makes sense on a couple fronts. Now, I might not agree with this list. I still maintain I think Shedeur Sanders is the most talented quarterback in this room. But based off of a couple of different things. A, Joe Flacco, you know what you're getting, right? You know what he is as a quarterback. Browns know what they're getting in him. And him not taking a lot of the reps at minicamp, to me, said, we don't need to see you. We know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You know how to run this offense. We're not worried about you. So let's just roll with the other guys, and then you'll take limited snaps. I think they've kind of set the tone for Flacco being maybe first up in that regard. And so I think that makes some sense, and there's a comfortability factor there. My B point on this, though, is like, even if I think Shedeur Sanders should be higher on this list or maybe should start the season because I think he's the best one, they have basically signaled that they're slow playing it with these rookies. And so I understand where Vegas is trying to say, like, hey, we're leaning into what's being reported, what's being shared about the team's sort of philosophy right now. We think Flacco has the best chance. We think the rookies have the worst of the chances because they seem adamant that they're not going to put those guys out there early in the season and throw the live bullets at them and make them have to kind of learn on the fly. And so I think that this list ultimately makes sense, but I know there's going to be some pushback because there has been a lot said about Kenny Pickett and how the team feels about him. Does it surprise you that Pickett actually doesn't have the best odds?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all, and two reasons for it. I think that what you said is dead right. I think you know what you're getting with Flacco, but I also think too there's this element to this season of like you have to keep not only the team bought in, but you have to keep kind of your fan base bought in. This has been a weird offseason in just in Browns world, right? Obviously it's the Deshaun Watson stuff kind of hovers over like a big black dark cloud, and then Nick Chubb leaves, and then Myles Garrett requests a trade, and then you got kind of David Njoku trying to like keep everyone together. He's like feels like kind of the glue guy. And if you roll Kenny Pickett out there week one, like Cleveland Browns fans have spent the last four years being like, this guy's not very good at football. I know I've done it. Many people have done it, and we've played him. And he showed some good stuff in Philly for sure. When he got in, he had that one really good game against the Cowboys. But like we've seen him, as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he's coming to Brown Stadium or Huntington Bank Field and lost to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's not looked good. He's beaten us a couple times, but like not because he played well, just because the Browns had these crazy, unfortunate losses. And it's like, all right, you roll him out there. I don't know how many people outside of your locker room are buying into it, but I also don't know how many people inside your locker room are buying into it, because guess what? Myles Garrett played against Kenny Pickett. Denzel Ward's played against Kenny Pickett. Martin Emerson's played against Kenny Pickett. All these guys have lined up across the field from Kenny Pickett, and they know what he is. I don't know that you can roll him out there and do that to your team, especially when the other guy's Joe Flacco, who – contrary to that, took your team on this crazy magical run 2 years ago to the playoffs and did all this great stuff. Not saying he's going to still be that guy, but there is that sense of like, he's done it once before. Why can't he do it again? Why can't we tap into this magic that he once had? So I do think I agree totally with those rankings, and even the rookie rankings too. Like Gabriel's ahead of Sanders right now, and they're going to get their chance later on in the year.
Yeah, listen, I do think it's somewhat surprising that Pickett doesn't have the highest odds given what's been said. But that kind of makes me wonder if that's more of like a national perspective of like, or sorry, a more local perspective where it's like, well, hey, this team really likes Kenny Pickett. So maybe Vegas doesn't have all the information, or they just feel Flacco's the guy. But I don't know. Like I've been pretty adamant that it would, I don't want to say stun me, because like this organization's done crazy things over the years anyway. And I'm not going to sit here and act like, and I'm not going to act like Pickett doesn't have a shot. But I just think, I think the Pickett thing. I do think the Browns think they can turn Kenny Pickett into like their Sam Darnold. Like and I've pushed back on that. I think Sam Darnold, even early in his career, showed he had like better skills and traits to be a quarterback that can make it at the NFL than Kenny Pickett did, frankly. Mm-hmm. And he just needed maybe the right situation to pull it out of him. And I know the Browns are going to argue the same thing for Pickett. Like, well, hey, we think the right situation is going to pull a lot out of him, and maybe they can. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. I just think, like, for a team that is inexperienced, has a lot of young guys, Flacco, we know, is going to make those guys around him better. He turned David Njoku into a Pro Bowler. He made Elijah Moore look like the receiver they thought they were getting when they traded for him.
He made him. I
think that stuff's important. Yeah, like I think that stuff's important. And when you're trying to win, rebuild to a degree. I like if you go with, and again, and Pickett could ball out. I don't know if the preseason will be telling, the joint practices will be telling all that stuff. I just wonder, there'll be something in the back of my mind though that makes you wonder if Pickett has like a great preseason, if it's fool's gold, because we've seen Kenny Pickett have great preseasons before, and then when you get to the bullets flying in a real NFL game, it's just he's not that quarterback, and so. Yeah. I have my doubts, but maybe he wins the battle here. And if you think he's going to win the battle, then I guess go play the odds at FanDuel, where you can get in plus 200 and win some money to bet Kenny Pickett starts week 1 instead of Flacco.
Yeah, no, I am firmly on the train that he was the insurance policy. We're in a bad shape. Yeah. Let's go get him.
I think, and to your point, I think back then they thought like, hey, maybe we get Kirk Cousins. Like, right? Like I think Kirk Cousins was still in play back then, so it's like, hey, he'll be our backup, and now we can go get Kirk Cousins.
And I think it's so important. I think back to this like probably way too much, but like once a day of like Joe Flacco saying he didn't know he was going to be a Brown until like the week that it happened. He's like, if you'd asked me a week earlier, I'd have told you, no way I'm going to Cleveland. So it's like, it's not like they had, all right, Joe Flacco circled and then anything else. That's why they went and got Kenny, because they were like, we have nobody. We may be able to draft one of our guys, but we also may not be able to. And I think the way it shook out positively for Cleveland, but that leaves you with 4 dudes in the room, and one of them is going to be the odd man out. And I think that it's like, if it were me, I would circle Kenny as that odd man out to be, definitely not starting week 1 and potentially not even on the roster come the end of the preseason.
Yeah, we know the quarterback conversation will be a central focus when training camp begins. It's a central focus now, so it certainly will be then. And we'll be interested to see how those odds turn out to be and who stands out. And I'm sure we'll talk more about who we think is going to have a big camp and whatnot coming up in the weeks ahead. But we do need to move on because we know the stars on this team. We know the guys that are going to have big seasons for the Browns to have a successful year. They're the Jerry Jeudy's. They're the whatever quarterback is starting. They're the Quinshon Judkins. There's the Myles Garrett's, Mason Graham's. Like there's a number of notable names. But I think what's interesting, Megs, there are a number of players on this team that I think are sort of flying under the radar that also have to produce big seasons. Some of them are probably rookies and contribute in a meaningful way for this team to reach those expectations of 6, maybe 7 wins. If they're going to surprise people and give what I said was a successful season and get to 9, 10 wins, maybe be a wild card contender, they're going to need these players to step up. So I'll let you have the floor here first. We'll just kind of go back and forth here one by one. Who is first up on a list of maybe 3 players that are flying under the radar heading into camp that you think have to have successful seasons for the Browns to have success in the future?
Yeah, and it's funny. I'll add one other piece of context too. When you say like a successful season, this isn't us saying they need to have 1,500 yards or 1,000 yards or 10 touchdowns. Like a successful season for some of these guys and a necessary season is, hey, you need to have 500 yards. You need to go ahead.
I was going to say maybe a better way to put it is like 3 under the radar players that need to contribute in a meaningful way for the Browns to have success. I think it's maybe it's wordy, but it's the best way I can think of on the fly here of how to word it. But I think, what you're saying makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, we're not saying they have to be like the best player necessarily for their group or whatever, but they need to give you something to sort of help you get over the top and be better than maybe people are expecting the Browns.
Yeah, it's a phrase I live my life by. Be a star in your role. These guys have to be a star in their role. The first one for me is Cedric Tillman, man. It is that's kind of an easy way out, but like I saw something the other day that somebody was calling him like potentially, I think it was Nico Collins light. Like, yeah, that would be sweet. He's got kind of that similar body frame to that guy. But, we saw what he could be in week 7 through 9 last year when Jameis was just kind of ripping that thing around the field and Cedric and Jerry were going crazy. And then he had that bad concussion that really cost him the rest of the season, cost him a fair amount of the offseason. He's been sitting out a little bit early on in our mini camps and the OTAs. And, for him and for really this entire offense, if this entire offense wants to go, like they need a number 2 wide receiver, and he would be such a perfect other option to Jerry Jeudy because he's got that big frame. He can be the guy on the opposite side of the field that if he is worth a damn, that takes eyes off of number 3. And the more eyes you can take off of number 3, the better it is for your offense. So I think for me, my number 1 guy going into this training camp is Cedric Tillman. Like, what are you going to be? Because it's decision time, frankly, for him in this Browns organization too.
I like that answer. I certainly thought about Cedric Tillman, but I think to be a little bit different here as well. I have another wide receiver in mind that I was tossing around leading up to this conversation. So I'm going to stick in that room, and I'm going to throw Jamari Thrash at you.
Yes.
I am still anticipating that the Browns are going to add to that room before the season starts. That's just my sort of feeling on it. But listen, like he was running with the ones. It's hard during minicamp and OTAs because they like rotate the receivers across like all 3 units. There's not like set ones necessarily. Like, Jerry is only really running with the ones, but other than that, it's like everyone just kind of rotates in with different groups and they just run routes and see what they can do. So yeah, like Thrash was running a lot with the ones. He was one of the first guys up at the slot spot. And even though and maybe Deontay Johnson has been more of an outside guy throughout his career. Maybe they view him as a guy that can play the slot and they just slot him in there and it's fine. And that's their slot receiver. But my indication is that Thrash is going to be sort of one of the first guys up to get that opportunity in the slot. And if that's the case, and if they don't make a trade, yes, they will use a lot of 12 personnel and use Harold Fandon in that role as well. But like if they don't go address that position or they don't add a receiver, Thrash is going to be, prominently used and an important piece in this group, and they're going to need him to step up and make plays for them out of that position because the slot receiver is an important one for this team. So I can't help but put him on this list, understanding that like he's flying very much under the radar. Nobody's really expecting anything from a guy who's a 5th round pick, and from a couple of years ago now, or from 2024. But if he ends up being their starting slot guy and they're not in 12 personnel, like he's going to have to be a guy that makes plays and catches the football and is reliable for them. So I'm going to have him as a guy that's on my list of 3 players here.
Yeah, and for him too, like I'm very curious about him because some of the stories coming out of minicamp, and you were there, but looked like, he put on some good weight, got a little bit bigger, was moving pretty well, and just has the opportunity right in front of him. The Browns, that specific spot on this Browns roster is a massive gaping hole. And like you said, if he's got the wherewithal to go fill it, I think that would be he'd be an awesome addition to this offense. So okay, I'm going to take my next guy down to the offensive line. It's going to be really hard to kind of get a read on this guy throughout training camp because it's hard to kind of evaluate offensive linemen, but it's Zach Zinter for me. The last 2 years, the Browns haven't gone through a year where their offensive line hasn't gotten beaten up, dinged here and there. And Zinter actually got some tick last year as well, but it's kind of that time where, Joel Bitonio is back. He's not going to be back for a long time. And they drafted Zinter to be the replacement, to be the next guy up. And it's such a big year for him to kind of take that next step and become a reliable piece up front. Not that he hasn't been, but become a starter level piece to this offensive line, because we're going to go back to what we were talking about earlier. This team's going to go back to running the football first. They're going to be that hard-nosed team that we came to know and came to love. And you're going to need your guys up front to be ready to go, whether it's a starter, the backup, the third string, whoever it may be, because there's going to be injuries. And I think for me, it's Zach Zinter showing up and being ready to go come this training camp.
I was not expecting the Zach Zinter answer because he's not technically a starter right now. But you're right. Like, there's been a lot of injuries on that offensive line. If someone goes down, he's going to be one of the first guys up, and they want to see if he can be their future, their Joe Bitonio, like once Joe Bitonio retires. So I like that one as well. I'm going to go to the defensive side of the ball. I don't know how more people aren't talking about Malik Collins. Yeah. Malik Collins was top 10 last year in pass rush win rate for interior defensive line guys. I think he's a really good player. I think the Browns, in an offseason where they had limited resources, I think they did the best they could, and I think getting a guy like Collins was a huge, huge win for them. So I like that one. I like that decision there. Felt pretty good about it in the grand scheme of things. And I don't think people are talking enough about like how disruptive he can be on an attacking front like this. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna put him on the list and run with it, because there's been so much focus with Miles, obviously, and Mason Graham, rightfully so, as the number 5 overall pick. But I'm telling you, man, like Malik Collins has a chance to really dominate with this group. And if that defensive line is going to return to prominence, if the defense is going to return to prominence, I think he's going to have to dominate in a big way. And I think we will get that from him when it's all said and done. So I'm putting him on my list as well, because he's not being talked about enough.
Yeah, dude. And that group up front on the defensive side of the ball, like we've seen them wreck games before, right? We've seen them win football games before. And I think that they're going to have the tools and the firepower to do it. So I'm going to stay on that side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball.
I was going to add, you could go and like swap Collins or like an Alex Wright or an Isaiah McGuire, because I think both those guys too deserve to be talked about a little bit as well, because both are sort of vying for that defensive end spot opposite of Miles, and the organization sort of rolled in a different direction this year. They didn't go sign like a veteran pass rusher. They were like, hey, we like the guys we have. We're going to see what they can do. And they even moved on from Obo Okoronkwo because of it. So I think they sort of fall in line with that as well as maybe like honorable mentions for me.
Yeah, no, those are all good names. I'm going to go back one level. For me, a guy that I'll have my eye on is Jordan Hicks. Just at that linebacker position, there's been so much turnover, obviously, with JOK's massive injury. You're going to have a rookie in that room. You got Devin Bush, who had a solid year last year. But if you don't have that voice in the linebacker room and you don't have that production out of the linebacker room, the whole defense can unravel, right? And Hicks is your veteran guy at that second level. He's been there. He's done that. This is a guy who, again, I talked about it just a little bit ago. We don't need him to have, 150 tackles this year, but he needs to be, especially early on in the year, kind of that tone setter, like getting everybody lined up right, getting this defense communicating, doing all the right things, and being that veteran presence at the second level of the defense. Because if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard to stop anything at all. So I'm excited to see what he has, and he's going to be a really important under-the-radar piece for the Browns on defense.
I'm actually going to stay with that same group. I thought about going back to the offense. Harold Fannin is a guy that comes to mind for me. Again, going back to that slot spot, how important that role is. And then running a lot of 12 personnel. If they don't rely on Thrash, it's going to probably be a lot of Harold Fannin. But I also think along those lines, I think people are talking about Harold Fannin. I don't know that he's like under the radar because he also had a really good minicamp. So but on the defensive side and in the linebacker room, I am going to look at the rookie Carson Schlesinger. I think when we talk about the rookies, I think he's lower on the list of guys we talk about because linebackers aren't really sexy positions anymore these days. So I think it kind of like in the pecking order of the rookies and how we talk about them. I think it's obviously like Shador's number one. I think Dylan's probably number two because he's a quarterback, and so it makes sense. And then I think it goes like Quinshon Judkins, Harold Fannin, then probably like Mason Graham's probably in there somewhere just because he was the number 5 overall pick, but like defensive tackles aren't really sexy either. And then the guys that get forgotten basically in this group are Carson Schlesinger and Dylan Sampson, who we don't really talk about at all.
Yeah.
And he'll have a role on the offense, by the way. But I think for Schlesinger, this is they drafted him. The Browns can say they didn't have in their mind, the status of JOK, but I think they knew he probably wasn't going to play at that point. And so they had to sort of think to themselves, let's try to find a guy that we think can sort of fill that void and a guy that can cover, but also fly up and make plays in the run game. Because we know they struggled to stop the run a little bit last year. And that's been an issue over the years as well. So they want to find somebody who can be rangy and do some of what JOK does. I'm not saying it's like an apples to apples. It's hard to fill anybody's shoes. I don't want to give him put this aura over him that he can't necessarily reach. But even he's talked about how his game sort of resembles JOK's. So I'm fascinated to see what it looks like or what he looks like. But yeah, he deserves to be more talked about. And let's face it, on this team, a number of these rookies are going to have to step up for this team to be successful. And I think Schlesinger certainly fits that billing as well.
Yeah. There's no doubt. He's going to be a very, very fun guy to watch. Coach Tarver, the Browns linebacker coach, just oozes with excitement when he talks about him because he's everything you want, and he's old school linebacker mixed with the new school speed because he flies around, he sticks his nose in there, loves contact, always around the football, gets the football out. He's going to be so much fun to watch, and you're not going to be able to miss him. He's massive. And he looks like a transformer in the middle of the field. He's going to be all over the place, plays smart, plays fast. He's going to be a really nice piece on that Browns defense.
So those are our under-the-radar players heading into camp that will need to contribute this year for the Browns to, have a successful season and maybe exceed expectations. Did we miss anybody? Let us know. You can hit us up on Twitter. Our handles are in there at the bottom there, or just jump in the comments section. Just jump in the comment section and on the YouTube channel here and let us know your thoughts. If we miss anybody, if there's anybody that you think isn't being talked about enough, etc. But we'll certainly welcome those, and maybe we'll try to circle back and bring them up on next week's show. With that said, final thing for today, and this was some pretty cool news. Jerry Jeudy making his first ever appearance on the NFL's top 100 list. He came in as the number 82nd ranked player. And this is a list, by the way, compiled by their own peers. All the NFL players vote on this thing. And so I think in a lot of ways, this means almost more to the players than anything, because this is your own peers saying, hey man, we respect the hell out of you. We think you're a damn good player. that you belong in the top 100 players from the guys who play the game, I think is a pretty cool thing. It's a commendable thing. I think Jerry's deserving to be in the top 100. Frankly, on another platform I do a podcast on, we've been sort of mapping out a top 100 players list, and I'm curious to see if my colleagues at that network also believe Jerry Jeudy is the top 100 player, because I have been banging the drum that he should be a top 100 player when the announcement came out that they were going to start this list like they always do at the end of June. Like, hey, I've been saying Jerry Jeudy belongs in the top 100 after the season that he had, and lo and behold, his peers agree he's in there. So a pretty cool honor for Jerry Jeudy.
You hit the nail right on the head. Like, this is being that it's voted on by their peers, is that they couldn't care less about all the other awards. Like, this is the ones that being named to this list, voted on by fellow players, is as good as it gets. And it's really cool for him. I mean, he was incredible last season. Obviously, he had a couple of those big games. You think back to that Denver game, which was record setting. But you don't catch or receive 1,200 plus yards, 1,229. Just with one game. He was consistent all year, and which was impressive, man. Like, the team was really bad, and it wasn't going well, and he was still going out week in and week out in the snow, in the rain, in the cold, whatever it was, and producing. And I thought that was obviously awesome from a Browns perspective, but really cool to see him get his recognition. So I teased this a little bit earlier to you before the show, Spence. I was doing a piece on Jeudy earlier in the week.
Real quick. Before, actually, no. Ask me your question, then I'll ask my thing. Go ahead.
Okay, so he sets the record, Browns record last year for 90 catches, which 90 catches in one season, the most ever in Browns history. A low number comparatively, but I was expecting to see, I just hadn't looked at the numbers in a while, but his 1,229 yards, I was expecting to see that be, first or second on the list. Really just kind of going by feel, thought he was going to be second to Josh Gordon, but he's actually sixth overall in Browns history, single season yards. Can you name the other five guys that had more yards in a season than Jerry Jeudy? I know I spawned it on you.
Is Josh Gordon two of them?
Josh Gordon is one of them. And that year was 2013, where he had 1,646 yards on just 87 catches, which is crazy.
And he's number one, isn't he? That's number one?
That's number one, yes.
Okay. For some reason, I thought Gordon had 2 years where he did that. I'm going to guess one's a tight end. I'll say Gary Barnidge.
No. Big Play Gare, not on the list. Big Play Gare is the 12th.
What about Kellen Winslow?
Kellen Winslow is 9th overall. He had an 1,100-yard year.
Okay. Is there a tight end?
There's no tight ends in the top five.
Damn.
But there's one guy that we've talked about before for sure on this list. You have to go back.
Amari Cooper. I'm guessing Amari Cooper's on there.
Yep. He's third overall with 1,250 yards.
I'm assuming that was the 2023 season. Yeah.
Yep. That's 2023. One's
Terrell
in the
Pryor?
No, not Terrell Pryor, but you're close. Braylon Edwards is second.
Braylon Edwards.
80 catch, 1,289
So those
yards.
are the top three. Gordon, Edwards, and Cooper are the top three.
Yeah. And then number 4, no chance on number 4. You have to go back to the Brian Sipe days in the 80s.
I'm not getting that one, I don't think.
Webster Slaughter.
I would have never got that.
The best picture of all time with him doing the jump high five, but he had.
And then
Slaughter.
Jerry's 6th.
Yep, Jerry's 5th. Jerry's 5th overall. So,
okay.
Yeah, only four ahead of him. But Webster Slaughter, 1,236 yards on the season. But I was shocked. I was shocked to see those numbers. I was expecting Jerry to be kind of second behind Josh Gordon. He certainly was close. But yeah, I was just curious to see.
I'll say this. I've said this elsewhere too. I think Jerry's poised to replicate at the very least those numbers, if not have a better season. And I think it all just centers around what we've talked about already. It's an inexperienced group. When any of these quarterbacks, whoever's starting, is in trouble or needs to make a play, they're going to look Jerry Jeudy's way. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's poised to make a lot of big plays for this team again, even though they're getting back to running the football more. Like, I still think 90 catches should be, like, on the menu for somebody like Jeudy. And, I mean, let's face it, like, when Flacco played with Amari and he had that year that, like you said, was third overall in franchise history in terms of yards, that was a team that still, like at that point in the season, they were still running some of the Kevin Stefanski stuff. There was still a lot of play action in there, and he balled out with Joe Flacco. So if Flacco starts again, like there's no reason to think that they won't pass the football down the field. He likes to take those deep shots, and Jerry's going to be on the receiving end of a lot of those. So I'm saying Jeudy is poised to at least replicate those numbers, but I think he could also beat them. And if he does, he'll find himself back in this top 100 list again. Let me ask you real quick. How many Browns do you think belong in the NFL's top 100 list this year?
So there's two easy ones. It's obviously Myles Garrett's going to be on the list.
Yeah.
Denzel Ward is going to be on the list, especially after his solid season.
He absolutely should be, yes.
And he even said he felt like it was his best year. I would have been in the camp that that Jerry's on that list for sure. And then when you kind of look around, definitely not much more than that. I think Wyatt Teller probably is.
I think the next two that would make sense would be either Teller or Bitonio. Like one of those two probably is deserving to be in the conversation. But the problem is Jerry's the first Brown on it, and he comes in at 82.
Yeah.
Those guys probably would have been behind Jerry, I would imagine. So I honestly, I've thought from the start, like 3 makes the most sense. Jerry, Denzel, Miles. If you're going to slip a fourth in there, I think, like we said, it would be the 2 guards we're talking about. On my list, I had Quinshon Judkins pretty high. Like, I think Quinshon's going to be great, so I probably would have had him like 5th or 6th on my list. I think Mason Graham maybe, but I also don't think a lot of rookies show up on this list generally because the players are basing it off of like, hey, these are the guys that we've seen play at this level. Like, we're not assuming any rookies are going to be great unless it's like some prodigy or something like that, maybe. But so yeah, that's it's interesting. But I think 3 is probably the sweet spot, and that probably makes the most sense. So Jerry being on there, it's a win for me because I've been banging the drum should be, and I'm glad he gets his chance to sort of shine here, and I think it's very deserving. So
yeah, and I would also say 3 is a good reflection of what the team was last year too, right? Like wasn't a lot of good football being played for the Browns. So yeah.
And by the way, everybody that thought the Browns made like a big mistake trading for Jerry Jeudy, giving him a contract extension as quickly as they did. Looking like, I mean, it's 1 year. It's a 1 year sample size. So let's see if he can do it again. I think he will. But he made a lot of people eat. Maybe not a lot of people, but there was a handful of people that like thought he was a bust, said he stunk, thought he was not worth it. Like the Browns made a mistake. They were ripping the Browns, like same old Browns. Browns bet on him finding like a new place and being comfortable and sort of breaking out. And they guessed right. They got that one right. So Andrew Berry can't draft receivers, but he sure knows how to trade for them.
And especially if he replicates it this year, then you're like, oh yeah, then it was the right move. But all signs point to him doing that and having another really good year. I think a lot of reasons for it. You touched on a lot of them, but the biggest in my mind is kind of that reversion back to the old school Kevin offense, where hey, we're going to run it first, take some of the pressure off of Jeudy, and then when it's time to go take shots, it's going to be bombs away to number 3. It's going to be exciting.
That's going to do it for us. Another episode down as we continue our countdown to training camp. It's another week in the books as well, which means I only really got one more week to really, really enjoy my summer before.
Take that sunshine in, brother.
So
take it in.
I think we're doing something. Next week, so we'll see. I know I'm going to the zoo. That's after training camp starts. We're going to the Columbus Zoo because we've been trying to get my son there for a while. So we got some small things still planned, but my vacation is over. It's back to reality, and we'll certainly be here to count you down to training camp, throughout training camp, and obviously during the regular season as well. So please, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. Make us part of your Browns coverage during the 2025 season and beyond. You can also find our written content over at Cleveland Browns on SI, or the URL down there at the bottom there on the scroll, si.com/info/Browns, where we cover a lot of these same topics, but of course, everything that's happening with this team on a daily basis. So we look forward to doing that once again, providing you with some great Cleveland Browns coverage. And on both spaces, we appreciate you and thank you for being supporters of the show. Megs, have a good weekend, my friend, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.
Yeah, let's go. It's 1 week down, or another week down, 1 week closer to training camp. Footballs are going to be flying through the air. High schools are starting their mini camps and their training camps. Football season right around the corner. And July 31st in Canton, Ohio is when that football gets kicked off, which is we got football this month. It's crazy, but we're finally made it back.
Yeah, it's a sobering reality for me coming back from vacation, but I will get to
some excitement, dude.
I will eventually be back at Meg's excitement level, but after a couple of days removed from being on vacation, I'm still kind of just, getting a feel for things again and, accepting my reality, if you will. So appreciate you as always. Keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with the Cleveland Browns on SI.